And we are back with Asian Pacific America. Somehow dance is always an important part of most cultural arts, maybe through the stories it tells, through the movements, and also the evolution of the dance form itself. Now, to give us some insights before she gives us a demonstration is Farah Yasmeen Shaikh, a Kathak dancer and instructor. Thank you very much for being here.
Thank you.
I hope I said that okay.
Thank you. Yes, you did.
Okay.
You did. Thanks so much for having me.
Tell us a little bit about this dance form as well as on how it kind of fits into Indian history and folklore.
Absolutely. So Kathak is an Indian classical form. It is one of 8 classical dances of India. It happens to be from North India, and it is an age-old tradition of storytelling, essentially. However, it very much parallels Indian history in that it started very much as a form of storytelling, and almost exclusively so. And then as it evolved, as did Indian history, it became also a form of entertainment where not only preserving the great epics of the Mahabharata, the Ramayana, it also became very influenced by Persian music, and then took on a very sophisticated complexity of rhythm simultaneously to the music evolving. And now in modern day, you'll see Kathak still holding the storytelling, very much holding these rhythmic conversations between dancer and musician, and also evolving into a place of innovation. So always staying very true to the classical form and its roots, but also finding its place in modern day society.
Is it a dance form that is essentially dance in and of itself for the storytelling, or is it always helped by like a collaboration or along with music or other types of art forms itself? Essentially,
it could be done just on its own, and through maybe a little bit of an introduction, of course, depending on who your audience is. But it could be without the music, but it is very much married to the music in many ways. Again, for that exchange of rhythm, through the sound of the music, it enhances the emotion of the expression of the dancer, the sound of the bare feet hitting the floor, again, complemented by the music. And you ask about collaborations, and not only between music and dance, but there are, of course, other methods of collaborating. On our main stages these days, that can be collaborations with lighting and set designers to enhance the story or whatever it is you're conveying to your audience. In my particular case, I've even decided to go into collaborating actually with an author. So I am taking what is the written word and adapting that to a dance performance.
You know, when we've done expressive dances before, it always just seems as though at some point when it first started, it was sort of a way of passing stories on, like from family to family, yes, generation to generation. Is that how it started here? What's the origin of why it kind of got created?
Absolutely. The history of Kathak is that thousands of years ago, the minstrels and bards would wander from village to village, and essentially they were the storytellers. Kathak comes from the word katha, meaning to tell stories, and the kataka is the storyteller. So these katakas would essentially, again, they were the threads of preserving what were in some ways religious practices, as well as preservation of history and passing that on through oral tradition.
And as we're talking, we see a little bit of some of the performance here.
Yes.
It seems very elaborate. Has it always been very, you know, visually oriented in terms of as a dance?
Yes, well, so what we're seeing here again is this collaboration that I am working on with an acclaimed author by the name of Indu Sundaresan. So her particular novel, The 20th Wife, she writes historical fiction, and she is basing it on Empress Noor Jahan, who is the 20th wife of Emperor Jahangir. And so what you're seeing here is costume and movement indicative of the characters portrayed in this story. And yes, visually, costumes do play a big part, but you could essentially be without costume, and what's more important is the body language and the expression. So the costume is meant to be an add-on, an accessory almost. Of course enhances it, of course draws the eye that much deeper into what's happening. But it is meant to be, it is a visual form. But the idea is, in my true assessment of, I think, dance, I think we see dance as very visual, but it's also really, what you're doing is you're invoking feeling, you're invoking emotion. And so people might think they're enjoying what they're watching, and of course that's there, but it's actually because you've touched them on the inside.
How about for yourself? Now, how did you get involved in it? What was it that, made you decide that that was the way you wanted to express yourself?
I was very lucky. So I had been dancing since I was 5 years old, but Western forms of dance. Indian dance was not accessible to me as a child where I grew up. But when I was in college at San Francisco State, I was extremely fortunate to come upon a dance class taught by a world-renowned master who I have had the great fortune of being trained by exclusively. His name is Pandit Chithresh Das, and he is truly a treasure to the world, not just to the U.S., not just to India, but to the art form and to the world. And so I started at the age of 18 and continued to study and train with him. And the training as such is that it's very much a disciplined training where the technique is at the heart of that. You must build the technique. Performance is absolutely secondary. But my performance experience has included performing around the globe, both in the U.S. and in India, with his company, the Chithresh Das Dance Company, and now embarking even more so on my solo career, which ultimately Kathak is a solo art form.
It's very visceral, isn't it? I mean, dancing is like, it's something that happens within you as well as when you're expressing yourself.
Absolutely.
What was it that you felt when you first started to do it?
When I first started, I think, to be completely honest, that is the thing about Kathak, is it took me a little while to understand the depth of the emotionality behind it. And so I was initially challenged and drawn by the technical components and the math and the rhythms that exist in the music and the dance. But now, actually, it's very interesting, again, going back to this performance that we're working on, I have to portray all these different characters. I have to portray an Emperor Akbar, and then I have to portray his son, who is initially frustrated with him, betrays him, and then at some point when his father dies, has, of course, an immense amount of regret. And how do I, a female woman, obviously centuries from that time period, how do you connect with that? And you do have to draw on your own personal experiences. I think about my own personal history. I think about my family, my friends, and on some of that is a visualization. But it is really just connecting at the deepest and most emotional place, because again, even as I said, you're touching the audience member on the inside. For an artist, for a dancer, I believe a performer of any type, you also have to start from the inside as far as what you want to express on the outside.
Really quickly, is the dance form still evolving? Is it being embraced by younger people?
Always. This particular story, it's very innovative to tell this story through Kathak. Though it's rooted in Indian history, it's very innovative to tell it in this medium. And so this is one example of that innovation and that evolution, but there are many. My guru, for example, he collaborates with a tap dancer that is generations younger to him. But it's about finding that commonality, a common language, and a way to bring joy and entertainment, and yet always stay very true to your art form.
Well, thank you very much for sharing that with us. And of course, we're going to get a chance to see you a little bit later up, because coming up, we continue our tradition of bringing you